Like, this is science. Everything's got its own frequency. We know that energy is neither created or destroyed, it's merely transferred or transformed. When we speak in energy. I don't even think people pay attention half the time in conversation when I say, I feel you, I feel you, I feel you.
You said I read your mind the other day, but baby, we are just connected deeply in another way. That telepathy connection, energy that's manifested through that melanin, electric currents traveling kinetic. What you thinking?
Call my mama.
But my mama calling me. Coincidence, no higher common sense. I call it ESP. We are magic. While this world's unraveling, 5G cannot limit our abilities from traveling. See, I'm on another level, dirty digging. Homie, get the shovel. I'm a rebel in this motherfucker, dancing with these demons. Got them screaming. This world is planting fear inside us. Clearly, I'm just over all the brainwashing. Time to wash your brain of all the pain, of all the stress, all the lies you told yourself. Open your eyes and realize you're a diamond in the rock. Don't let them tell you what you're not. It's time to show the world all this magic that we got with telepathy.
So hear me clearly. For me, language is liberation. The words that we have, they define and describe the very things that free our mind, but only when we choose with intention and pay attention to the frequency of the words that we use to construct our realities. Who do you say that you are? I am. I am. Those two words alone are the very beginning to a powerful sequence of awakening yourself to who and all that you are, have been, and will be. We talk in frequency.
Focus your energy. Clouded visions, poison minds, can't see clear enough. The world full of interference, so God ain't hearing us. My spouse miles away, can't even take a walk in public. Coronavirus got us locked away like lab subjects. Close your eyes and you can feel the pain, we all connected. Empath, so I sense when every soul's ejected. A mystic, magical, way beyond simplistic. 5G blocking my chi, keeping our signals twisted. Communicate with my mind, mental telepathy. Into nature, so we speak on different frequencies. My third I watch, the other two never truly see. The world is an illusion shrouded in secrecy. A king by birthright, a god at first sight. Divine shine bright, blind the wicked at first light. Open your heart chakra and let these words shock you. We tell them havoc, use your magic like a witch doctor.
Or ancient Egyptian words of power that speaks to the soul. I command your soul to listen. Nukta chaz un mesura aritun ak em ta tema'u. Nukta chaz un mesura aritun ak em ta tema'u. Nukta chaz un mesura aritun ak em ta tema'u. The chaz un mesura aritun ak im ta tema'u.
All right, peace and blessings, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Do Knowledge Radio. Place where knowledge is born. This is your host, Knowledge Born Alive, and I'm honored and privileged, okay, at the mercy of Mother God for her. I was like, can you please come back, Mama? It was going crazy last time you came here. She was like,
oh, stop it.
I guess. But we're here because she is one who is bona fide and qualified to help us navigate the gracious waters of these ancestors that we give birth to, that we say that we want, that we misunderstand the most and neglect the most. So it becomes my honor and privilege at this time to introduce some, present to others. The greatest gift Mother God could ever give us is Mother God herself, here in the person and the divine healer, the divine corrector, the divine guide, one who mothers us through the storm and hell of trauma and drama. Okay.
What
and make it look easy. Okay. Reverend Dr. Jza Huskey is in the building. Let's get
Thank you for having me.
How are you? How art thou? How thou doest?
Well, I am well. That's my thing for 2024. All is well.
Love it. I love it. I love it 100%. So we're here because I was like, tis the season, right? You know, they do this in holiday season. They be like, oh, tis the season to be whatever. But this is a season in a shift. You know, a shift is taking place. And if we miss it, we can't say we didn't know. You know,
Right.
we can't say that we weren't warned for such a time as this. And the concern for me becomes those who live on after. You know, a
Mhm.
lot of us won't make the shift, you know, but there's many of us who come from us, who come through us, through our bloodlines, through that ancestral track that will live on. And in a few moments, because, you know, in the blink of an eye, there'll be the uh, elder generation, and they'll
Right.
have given birth to children and children. So uh, we come back through those bloodlines. So I wanted to, you know, invite you on to speak about something very near and dear to my heart, and I know that is your work, navigating through these challenges and equipping Black parents with the tools of identification
Mhm.
with our youth because they go through a lot. You know what I mean? We come from a generation where we cursed ourselves via the interfaces we had with our parents and grandparents. You know, what you know about that? You don't have to pay no bills, and what you mean you upset, and what you mean you just lazy. They start going through all of these things of projection and don't get to the root. We all deal with the leaves that are tattered and torn from the trees, but we never get to the root. We never say, "Hey, I could never." My mother could never. I
Mhm.
could never. My father could never. We never get to those things to have a kind of understanding. So, looking in that space to reform us and reconcile, you know, uh, your background is so extensive. So I was like, let me just have a little moment of your time, Mother God, to kind of guide us through, you know, and get us together. You understand what I'm saying? What is going on with our youth? You know, what are we missing? First of all, can we just start there? What are we missing? What's the disconnect between us and our youth?
I think one of the major disconnects in the Black community itself is we have this whole stay in a child's place mentality.
Mm,
And we neglect to remember that children are just smaller adults. They're little people, which means they have feelings, which means they go through things. They may
yes,
not go through adult things that we do, but they go through things. And sometimes we unintentionally brush that off. Them having a hard day at school is the equivalent for them mentally as you having a hard day at work. And so, if a hard day at work can make you come home and be drained and be cranky and not want to be bothered, what do you think a hard day at school does for a little person? And so,
right,
sometimes we hold them to a higher standard than what we should. We have some unrealistic expectations for people who haven't even fully developed yet to be
right.
able to navigate through stress that we have a hard time navigating through, and it's kind of unfair to them.
Mm. Whew. Now I'm going to ask about a variance in between because I know you've been at this for a while.
Hmm.
Before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and now, quote unquote, post pandemic, what are some of the things that you saw? And did we devolve? Did we evolve? Did we revolve? And, you know, what's the status of us in relationship to one another, especially to our youth? in these time periods.
I think the pandemic definitely set us back as adults and as youth a lot, mentally and emotionally. We were put in a situation that the generations that are living now have never experienced. We've never had to physically not be able to leave our home. We've never had to physically not be able to embrace our loved ones, not be able to sit close to people, not be able to have that human interaction. And it definitely set us back. I think that it also forced us to recognize a lot of things that may have been wrong already, that life was life and keeping us busy and we weren't focusing on it. But now you're in the house, you don't have anything to do. Those quote unquote demons become a little bit more visible. You see the things that may be troubling you that you may have been running from. You are put into situations that you may have avoided by keeping busy. Now you can't keep busy. You got to deal with it. And all of this happened at once. And the parents didn't know what to do. The kids didn't know what to do. And it just definitely, it caused a little chaos, a little chaos. And then just at the snap of a finger, the government said, all right, everybody can go back to work. Everybody can go back to school. It's not scary outside no more. And we didn't know how to adjust to that either. Because after 2 years of that being our new normal, now you want us to go back to the way that it used to be. You got to give us some time to catch up and adjust to that. So it did a number on us for sure.
I brought that up. I learned something about myself, during that time frame, with my children in particular, with my youngest child in the first place. And I saw how easy it could become to perpetuate a cycle if you're not cognizant of it. There was one day I was looking for my son and he was outside, on the porch by himself. Ain't never happened. Ain't never happened. You know what I'm saying? Like never happened. And I'm like, yo, you good? And he's like, I'm good, Daddy. And I seen his face and he was crying. And I'm like, I know he ain't did nothing wrong. And if he did something wrong, he ain't gonna hide outside on the porch. You understand what I'm saying? He gonna hide in his room somewhere. He gonna be trying to act like he ain't did something. You understand what I'm saying? So that's the first instant. The first instant is that. So I'm like, what happened? Immediately I'm in protective posture. What happened? What I gotta regulate? Who I got to go see? You understand what I'm saying? So I'm like, I got down eye level. I said, what happened? What's going on? You're not in trouble. I just need to know what's going on. This ain't like you. You out here, you by yourself, and you was crying. What happened? He said, I'm just so stressed out, Daddy. 6. You understand what I'm saying? 6 years old. He's like, I'm just so stressed out. And I'm like, I heard every generation that came before me. I heard all of them say, I lost her for a second, so I want to make sure that she hears this. So y'all give me a second and just wait for her to come back real quick. Shazam. There we go.
Kick me out for a minute. Okay, so you said
Good.
stressed out. And he's how
Right,
old?
he was 6 at the time. He was 6. 6 or 7. I think he was 7. Don't get the You know, I want him to be like, no, son, I'm saying I was 7. We telling people I was 6. You know what I'm saying? So he's like so stressed out. And I heard everybody in my lineage that came before me shout in a loud voice, like, what he know about, what he got to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
He ain't got no bills to pay. And, you know. And then I heard my mother say, shut that shit up. You understand what I'm saying? Find out what's wrong with your child.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, she didn't get a chance to do that with us. She didn't get a chance to do that with us. She did it, but she couldn't vocalize it at times.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, what's going on? Why you stressed out? What happened? You know, talk to me. I'm here for you. Whatever it is, we'll get through it together. And he was like, I'm worried about everybody. You know, he's got a great grandfather syndrome about his family, and he the youngest in the family. He's like, uh, this virus is going on, and people getting sick, and I'm worried if something happens to somebody in the family, or he's 6. He's carrying this burden, and he's carrying it in silence over to the side to himself, and he wasn't comfortable to come and express it. So he's just dealing with it. He's holding on to it. He's harboring, like he's in this space right here, like boom. And I'm like, nah, we're good. You understand what I'm saying? We're good. So we, going through it, like you don't have to carry that burden. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have to carry that burden around, you know, by yourself. You could talk to me about anything. You understand? I don't care. Like it might look like I may, not be in the mood to hear you and all that. Whatever it is, I stop what the hell I'm doing in this time. Whatever it is, you don't have to be walking. You're not here by yourself. You're not here
Right.
alone. And this wasn't something that we had the luxury to do. And I explained, I said, I had to go through things by myself because it wasn't always an opportune time or space for me to be able to share that, with my mother or, somebody in my family that I look to. And it affected me, and it affected me negatively. And I don't want these things to affect you negatively. You got a voice, you got a story. It's important, it matters, and I'm here for it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I could feel 1,000 pounds come off of it,
Mm-hmm.
and 1,000 pounds come off of me. You see what I'm saying? Like, so in that space, I think that we got a chance to really establish trust. Like there was a bond there before, but the trust is something else, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it needs to be renewed and recalibrated and reestablished. It's not just because you got it, you got it. You have to keep it. If you're in a relationship with somebody, you got to work at it. You can't just be like, oh, well, I washed the dishes last week and shit. You understand what I'm saying? You have to be looking intentionally each day to, you know, be in a space where y'all able to see each other. And that's how, we work through some things, in that regard. So I think the pandemic in particular was something, my oldest daughter, she didn't get to have the prom and all of that. You see what I'm saying? Like they had a 10-minute graduation. You see what I'm saying? Like it was real cataclysmic on each person's level. They out there, they protesting for George Floyd and all these other undercurrents. Like first time people meeting themselves from these different vantage points and aspects, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
somebody telling you you're on punishment. You know what I'm saying? America's on punishment. You can't go outside. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, oh, I'm gonna sneak out and all of those things. So it was a bunch of things that was going on. And I think that nature got to reset and we got to reset as well. But you said the reset sort of set us back. So, how are you navigating through that time, with your client base?
It was very different. I'm a different type of therapist, and I
Mhm.
get invested in my patients and my clients getting better. And so I'm the type of therapist that, my demographic is mainly Black people. And
Mhm.
so my patients were used to being able to come into my office with a bonnet on, eating chicken nuggets, sit crisscross applesauce on the floor, and tell me about their day. And the
Mhm.
pandemic kind of took that away and made everything virtual. And it was less personal because now, even though in clinical therapy, they kind of discourage you from doing this. But if I'm in a therapy session and my patient starts to cry, I'm going to console my patient. I'm going to at least put my arm around you or do something to comfort you. I couldn't do that anymore. Everything was digital, everything was virtual. So here I am trying to comfort somebody through trauma through a telephone or a laptop. And so
Mhm.
it was an adjustment on my end for figuring out ways that I can still console and help my patients, but do it from a distance. And it's very, very hard as a holistic therapist to have that distance because it's all about connecting with that person. And
Right.
so I was adjusting, the patients were adjusting, and one of my patients was 12 years old at the time when we first went on lockdown. And
Mhm.
our first session, she was like, Doc, I don't like this. I said, well, you don't like what? She's like, I done cried like 2 times and you ain't touched my hair. You ain't told me to tighten up. You can't put your arms around. I don't like this. I was like,
Mhm.
well, give it time. I said, we gonna air hug it out until we can get back together. I'll send you a hug emoji. We gonna make this thing work. I'm gonna send you that same energy. It's just gonna be from a distance. So it made things a little bit harder on my end, but I had to work around it for sure. And I think a lot
Mhm.
of people didn't realize that kids took in so much around that time. It wasn't
Right.
just the pandemic, like you said, the protests with George Floyd, with all of the police brutality and things that were being broadcast on TV. Now these kids are home from school and they're seeing this on CNN all day. So not only she was 5 at the time of the start of the pandemic. Not only did my 5-year-old walk in and see the police kill a man on national television, see a
Mhm.
grown man crying for his mom, and I have to explain that to her.
Mhm.
But now the outlets that she's used to, going outside, going to dance, going to gymnastics, playing with her friends, we took all of that away. So we introduced new stress, but we took away the coping mechanisms. And we
Mhm.
didn't take into consideration what that did to the kids.
Right. Mhm. Man. Yeah. I mean, I had some great times, honestly, during the pandemic. There was so many opportunities to make new memories, and
Mm-hmm.
there were some horror stories. I extended myself out to the community. I was in Fayetteville around that time, so I was in I was in the trap out there. You see what I'm saying? And uh, helping young people and elders. The people in between, and young people and elders. So it was a group of us that was dealing with the elders. 4 or 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Went to check on them to see if they need stuff from the store, medication, whatever the case may be. You know, and that was their assignment. And it started off with a few of us with the youth. And by the end, I looked up, it was just me. You see what I'm saying? With about 150 youth at one time, you know, dealing with them, one meal a day, 5 days a week. The difference between a jail cell and a cemetery or a mental institution was a sandwich
Mm-hmm.
and a piece of fruit and somebody who looked like them who didn't fail them. Somebody who looked like them who wasn't an abuser. Somebody who looked like them that spoke words of affirmation and correction, that looked like them, that knew that any single day that they showed up, No matter how much progress is made, we could be back at day 0
Right.
and we're still there. You see what I'm saying? I don't have your background. I don't got the credentials. You understand what I'm saying? But that God sent push and thrust. I was a child running around. You see what I'm saying? Like the free lunch, you know what I mean? Ghostface said free lunch held us down like still. That was in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the rest of the time?
Right.
So the petty things associated with eating, the things that grown people do for eating, what a young person gonna do. And oftentimes, like the abusers were at home with them. So school was a space for them to get away from their abusers for a couple of hours, get something to eat. And even if they was acting a fool in the class, they got some kind of attention.
Right.
Whether it was positive or negative. Now they're home with their abusers,
Mm-hmm.
and they're harboring this enmity in their heart for them. I saw some videos and posted. I'm gonna drop my children off at at their teacher's house because I can't be. You can't be at home with your children.
Your kids that you produce.
You can't right. You can't be at home with your children. You losing. They eating up everything. What are they supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
What are they supposed to do? So there was some interventions that happened. With some folk, and then on the opposite side of the spectrum, there were families that I had to intervene with uh, people who took in foster children, and they were treating the foster children well and abusing the birth children because the birth children didn't come with no check.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a bunch of these things that I was seeing, for a couple of years. We didn't have no funding, no budget, no nonprofit, no miracle thing that came from the sky. We was just working the work, and like I said, by the end it was just me, making it happen because I couldn't be one that failed them. I couldn't be the one that failed them, and our destinies was intertwined. I know what I was like as a child out there, and I wasn't wayward. My mother was conscious. That didn't stop the street.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? We was aware of what was going on and all these things that were happening and all of that. We had requirements and standards and all of those things, but it didn't stop the street. The street is the street, and the street will eat you alive if you're not prepared. So I thought about my younger siblings, and I wanted them to have a chance to be a child because I didn't have a chance to be a child. My older brother, he didn't have a chance to be a child. And I don't think we ever really addressed those things. We just took it as living. And we don't know how much detriment that might have been. My siblings didn't ask me to be the way that I was. I took it upon myself because they deserved a chance. They deserved a chance to just exist, to just be, to go to school, to get their education, and be something productive in life. I had to be.
Look at the adult decision that you had to make as a child.
Right.
And we don't consider that because physically, if we're talking scientifically and physically, your brain is not even fully developed till you're 24 years old.
Right.
And so you're having to make these adult decisions as a child to, I want my younger siblings to be able to be kids. So I'm going to take on some of this adult responsibility. But you were doing that with half of the brain function of an adult.
Right.
And so that takes some wear and tear on you mentally too.
Yeah, I look back now, I'd have told him to hell with him. You understand what I'm saying? Fend for yourself. Fend for yourself. Yeah, my mother was doing it alone, and there was 7 of us. And I think of my big age now, and I'm still figuring it out. And she had to figure it out at 37. Maybe 37, might even be 35 with 7 children. Dolo. You know what I mean? Like
it's a new concept for us in the Black community too. It used to be that dads needed to be in the home. And if a dad wasn't in the home, it was a shameful thing or a
Right.
sorrowful thing. Whether
Right.
he's removed because he ran off or he's removed because he's deceased, the community used to rally around those women that didn't have a
Right.
man in the home and offer that support, that replacement energy. And we stopped doing that. It became a little bit too normal to not have daddy at home. Single
Right.
mothers became more prevalent. And that was something that we weren't used to because even on a plantation, your mama might be in the house and your daddy might be in the field, but you know where they at.
Right.
And so that was fairly new for us to have to learn how to deal with here in the last 3 decades too.
And then generationally, if we went back to the plantation, we didn't choose our family.
Right.
We didn't choose our family. So, I remember the nursery story that they talked about where babies came from, and they said the stork brought them.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the truest thing in the world. That was the truest thing in the world. You didn't want the stork to bring you a baby,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So that plantation owner took your children, sold your children, killed your children, and bought you a child to raise.
Mm-hmm.
So your family was whoever showed up at your doorstep.
Right.
And then when we fast forward that, literally our extended family showed up at our doorstep with their children and left them at our doorstep. You see what I'm saying? Like it was already 7 of us that didn't stop. My mother came from 14 siblings. There's 15 of them.
Mm-hmm.
All of them had children. It didn't stop them at any given time. My mother never turned nobody away, young or old.
Mm-hmm.
That was she had the house and she was bringing them in. She didn't have a house. She had an apartment, and there was a bunch of us already in there. That didn't stop a bunch of our family members from coming. So literally, it was like that constant rotation, constant rotation of people coming in. So it was easy for things to get neglected and people to get neglected. You see what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? So that space is something. So you might have been taking care of children that you didn't want,
Right.
and you're longing for your own children, and it passed through generationally, and all of the experiments on plantation about the sex farms, the breeding farms, and all of those things that happen. So giving birth was not something that you could love. It grew to be something that you could hate. you
Mm-hmm.
know you're giving birth to a child, and you don't know if your child, how long you're going to have your child. And then if they got a certain age, boy or girl, if they looked marketable or something else, they would take it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they refuse to do something, they would take it and they would beat, whatever the case may be in regards to that. And a lot of those syndromes become a way to solve the problem, quote unquote, not knowing how much of a greater problem. So uh, I want to delve into the mental health aspects and the challenges. And I'm gonna be quiet because I want to glean from your wisdom, Mother God. Okay, um, in your work, what are some things that you share, or things that you could share with us in regards to recognizing uh, what they call grown people diagnosis in children, in,
Mm-hmm.
in our in our youth in particular, Black youth in particular.
I think one of the things that irks me as a Black therapist is that they are very quick to label our children as having ADHD. If a child squirms too much in their seat in kindergarten, oh, little Tyrone got ADHD, let's get him on some medication. He's in kindergarten, he's 5. I'm more concerned if he's not squirming in his seat because that's typical behavior and normal behavior for a 5-year-old. And so they start shaping our children and labeling our children very early on. And they start at such an impressionable age that if you start telling little Tyrone in kindergarten that he has behavior problems, he has problems focusing, you're speaking these things over him. Now Tyrone's 15, and everything that he does, he backs it with your misdiagnosis. It's that I'm just a bad kid. I don't know how to behave. I don't know how to pay attention, so I'm not even gonna try. And we ruin our kids by letting them do that. I tell every black parent, when that teacher send that letter home saying she want to have a meeting, and the first time that she brings up medication, bring me your child. Let me talk to that baby first. Don't put that baby on no kind of pills without having him talk to a black professional first. Because, and I'm very blunt when I speak, but these white teachers, these white staff members in these schools, even these white therapists, have no idea what the black experience is like. They have the book training, they have the education to tell you how to broadly treat mental illness and issues that may come up, but they don't have that experience level or that black experience to be able to couple that with the education. So, for example, in black homes, we know mama might be raising her voice and yelling because we didn't clean up the house or we didn't wash the dishes. That doesn't mean mama loves us any less. That means mama done worked all day and you should have washed them dishes before she got home. That's not labeled as abuse to us. That's how mama responds because mama wasn't taught proper communication skills. So that's not alarming to us. So when we go to school, when we go out into the world and we get passionate about something and we raise our voice to get our points across, now white people say, "Oh, they're too aggressive. They need counseling. They're too angry." No, that's how we were taught to communicate. Black staff members, black therapists understand that. White people not so much. And so there's a lot of room to misdiagnose a child because they don't know our experience. They don't know the way that we move. They don't know the way, just our vibes in general. And so from the outside looking in, some things that we do are taken as aggression or anger or behavior issues when really that's just our upbringing and that's just the vibe of how our family dynamic is set up. A black parent is going to tell you if you go to school and a kid hits you, you hit them back. So that's what we do instinctively. If Timmy hit me on the playground, I'm bopping Timmy back and it's done and over with. But the teacher says, no, you come tell a teacher. You don't do to them what they do to you. You come tell a teacher. I tell my kids, somebody hit you, bop them. You tell the teacher afterwards and let them call me and mama go handle it. But they don't recognize that black part of it, that black upbringing, to couple it with their education to be able to deal with our kids properly. So our kids are put at a disadvantage in these schools when they don't have black staff members, where the staff doesn't mirror the demographic. If you go into the most urban schools out here, most of the teachers are white. Not only are they white, they're old. And so there's such a disconnect. There's a generational disconnect, there's a racial divide, and our kids are not getting poured into the same way that the white children are getting poured into. If a white child comes to school and exhibits some odd behavior, the teacher first instinct is to investigate. When our children exhibit odd behavior, their first instinct is to correct it or chastise it, and they should be treated the same. Investigate what's wrong with Tanisha, just like you investigated what was wrong with Emily. Get to the root of what's wrong with them, why they're behaving a certain way, instead of just let me correct her, but let me help her. It is such a mess in this school system, such a mess.
So the labeling slash diagnosis, or I won't even go that far. Just you know, what are the behaviors associated with, like, say, depression? What's some of the signs we could look for? Um, or if they're getting bullied, or if they're getting, you know, they might be getting abused or, molested, whatever the case may be. I don't think we have a critical eye to recognize those things. I
Mm-hmm.
think we have a critical eye for correction. Didn't I tell you? Well, why you ain't? We don't go through that. Like, we ask questions that we really don't want the answers to. Didn't I
Exactly.
just tell you that? Well, how come you didn't do it? You're not waiting for them to actually respond and say why they didn't do it, what happened, blah blah blah, all of those things. You're looking for a reason to justify whatever comes next.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, so whatever comes next. So I just said I'm gonna be quiet again. I'm gonna be quiet because I want to hear, you know, what some of the things to give some insight into these things because like we said at the beginning before, we deal with the effect more than the cause. We deal with the effect. We deal when something happened. Teacher called, the note come home, blah blah blah, all of those things. We deal with all of that stuff instead of root cause analysis. So,
Right. I think that when one of the most telling signs that something's going on with your child is a change in pattern. Children from birth to about 19 have a hard time regulating their emotions. So if they're happy, they're really happy. But if they're sad, they're really sad. And so if you have a child that their normal routine is come home, get a snack, do homework, play video games. And then you notice for a week straight, your son hasn't touched his video game. He just getting a snack, doing his homework, or staying in his room. You need to ask questions and hey, you ain't played the game in a minute. What else are you doing instead? Because it may be something positive where, they texting or talking to their crush on the phone and that's why they're not playing the video game. But it could also be something negative where they're depressed and the things that they used to like to do don't stimulate them anymore. But we don't know that unless we ask questions. And so that's one of the first tools as a parent. If you notice a difference in your child, simply ask them what's going on. If it's a teenager, they're going to buck against you and be like, I'm fine. It's nothing. As a parent, you wouldn't let them shut you down in any other way. If you told him to clean that room and he said, no, I don't want to, that's not going to be the end of the conversation there. So when we're talking about their mental health and their well-being, don't let the conversation get shut down there either. You may have to push a little bit, but what it does is it shows them that, okay, they really are concerned. I'm not in trouble for behaving different. Mama really care about what I got going on. Daddy really care about what I got going on. And they'll start to open up a little bit more. Because these kids, especially school age children, they're treated like prisoners. There's not much difference between the day in the life of an inmate and the day in the life of a student in America. The buildings look the same. They can't move until somebody tells them to move. They can't go pee without permission. The lunch trays even look the same. And so it's not much of a difference. And so they're treated like inmates all day. And then they come home, and some of them have, not so great home life. Some of them have adult responsibilities coming home to take care of the younger siblings or help mom and daddy out because they got to work. And so you're treated like an inmate all day. Then you come home, you have to pretend to be an adult. And then when you try to voice your opinion about something, your parents say, stay in a child's place. Well, I was an inmate a minute ago. I was a parent while you were gone. And now that I have an opinion, you want me to be a kid. That's very confusing for a child. And it can cause depression when you don't understand something. It can cause anxiety when you're not sure how something works or how something is going to turn out. And so I would just encourage parents to ask questions. If you see a difference in your kid, even if it's a slight one, ask questions. Ask why that's different.
whew, me. Yes, yes, that bond, that ability to be able to trust something was broken. Something was it. Like my son could have he could have tried to tell me nothing was wrong with him. You understand? And when he figured out, okay, I'm not going no place until I hear what's going on, but I'm not in the same posture as the disciplinarian.
Mm-hmm.
Because the disciplinarian posture is something that you're able to recognize. So what's this other aspect? Like, damn, like daddy about to cry? You understand what I'm saying? Like what's up? Like, because you know, uh when it grieves your heart, it grieves your heart. You
Right.
know, and being open and being vulnerable and being in that space and uh, you know, admitting things like, oh yo, you don't have all the answers, you know. You don't have all the answers. Like, yeah, nah, we don't. I don't know what's going on either. Whatever it is, we're gonna deal with it as a family. You see what I'm saying? Like that space of availability and that space of advocacy. One of the main reasons why I asked you to come here because of advocacy. I don't know if we know how to properly advocate for our children. You know, trauma happens, something happens. Okay, this is there. Now, how do we advocate? How do we show up properly for our children throughout this healing process? How do we reestablish trust? If something happened to you and it was an adult and it was an adult male, every adult male is going to trigger you.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if it's your father. You had trust before and that trust was broken. If
Right.
it was an adult female, it doesn't matter all of the adult females, and if it was something related to tonality, you hear that, you're triggered. How do you advocate through these processes? How do we get and reestablish trust after the trauma happens, after the drama happens, after whatever the case may be? So, I wanted to ask about that. And I also wanted to ask in situations of co-parenting, because this is more common than not.
Right.
How do you help to guide folks in their space in traumatic situations where one of the stressors may be, because they separated, but they're co-parenting and putting that together as well.
Mm-hmm. So the best way to be an advocate for your child is to first off listen. Don't make assumptions and think that you know what's going on. Don't say, oh, I know my child. I know they did it or I know they didn't do it. Listen to your child. I was in several situations in my early teens where if adults had just listened, the whole trajectory of my life would have been different. I, for example, was in a very abusive relationship. I call it relationship because I was only 14. But I was in a very abusive relationship. And the very first adult that I went to and told what was going on with me, I knew not to tell my mom or my dad. But the very first adult that I went to a woman in the church that I confided in, that I felt close to, and I let her know that I was being abused in this relationship. And her very first response to me was, well, what do you be doing to make him so mad? And I processed that as, that's my fault. Whatever he's doing to me is because I'm triggering him. I'm making him do this to me. So let me change my behavior. Not let me get away from his bad behavior or his mistreatment. Let me change what I'm doing because I'm triggering him apparently. This trusted adult told me you must be doing something to piss him off. Stop pissing him off. Now, if I'd had someone to come and say, girl, you are 14, you should not be going through this, should no man be putting their hands on you, get away from this little boy, that could have changed everything about me for probably the next 5 years. But I didn't have that. And so I tell parents and teachers and just even community activists, be the person that you wish you had as a kid. Give them the advice that you wish somebody gave you. Be in that space and have that energy that you would have needed for an adult to have when you were their age. Because these teachers aren't always right. These teachers aren't always telling the truth. Your child is not always bad. Sometimes your child is acting out because there's something going on mentally and emotionally. But if we don't listen and we don't ask questions and we don't show up and make sure that our kids know they're a priority, then we don't get to the bottom of that and they turn into unhealed adults. Now, I had to correct a mother last week because she said, I'm not taking off work to come to no counseling session with my daughter. Okay, so do you want to have to take a couple of days or a couple of weeks off work when your daughter hurts herself because you didn't want to come to a counseling session? You let me know which one you want to do so I could put it in my calendar. She made sure she was at that counseling session. And sometimes it just has to be, the child has to be a priority. Because at work, if you miss that day of work, if you drop dead today, they're going to replace you tomorrow. That's not a priority. But as Black people, we've been conditioned to think that work is the priority over everything, over our marriage, over our kids. We got to go to work. We got to make this money. We got to pay these bills. But we have to take care of home too. And so I think listening, asking questions, showing up for your child, and not letting the only time that you have a conversation with your child be to discipline them or to tell them when they're wrong is very, very important. And we don't have a lot of that in the Black community. As far as co-parents, you almost have to get together and make a game plan with your co-parent. You have to get together and make sure that y'all are on the same page. Because I have a stepfather, but my mom and my dad were co-parents as well. And I knew what I could get away with my mom. I knew what I could get away with my dad. If they would have gotten on the same page and had the same rules across the board, I'd have turned out a whole lot different. But they didn't. With my mom, I knew, my mom is African. She's a preacher. Ain't but so much she gonna let me get away with over here. But I go to my dad's house and I'm footloose and fancy free. I ain't got no curfew, no bedtime. I can eat brownies for breakfast if I want to. Nobody's gonna correct me on anything. And I knew that, and I played them against each other because of that. If you are co-parenting, you and your child's other parent get together, figure out the rules, figure out how you guys want to raise this child, and stick to it. It doesn't need to be a drastic difference in households. It doesn't need to be a drastic difference in one parent to the next. Y'all have to get together and make a game plan. It's co-parenting, not I'm a parent over here and you're going to parent over here. We're going to parent together no matter where the child is. And so it's hard to do when you have a generation of people who, like our mothers and fathers, don't have that communication skill, don't have those conflict resolution skills. You get baby mama, baby daddy activity instead of co-parenting. And your child is taking all of that in. Your child is watching all of that. And your child is thinking that's the norm. So they may be like me and think that it's normal for parents to be at odds. And then they turn into adults and have a relationship where, wait a minute, we're not arguing. We're not beefing about nothing. This don't feel right, so it must not be right. And they run away from something that's positive because that's what they've been shown as the norm. So I think, like I said, listening, asking questions, being on the same page, and showing your child that they're a priority, that would eliminate a lot of the issues that we have with these kids. Just somebody being there, somebody hearing them and not brushing them off as you ain't got no stress, you ain't got nothing to worry about, because that's just absolutely not true.
Whew. An advocate that listens.
Mm-hmm.
I've been an advocate that listens and an advocate that don't listen.
If you're not
I've been
listening, not an
I've been an advocate for not listening. And an advocate for listening and listening to understand,
mm-hmm.
and not just listening to respond.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I had to learn over the years. I had to learn over the years, and I had to apologize. I never heard my mother say she apologized for something that she did wrong, to me. Never, never, never. Um,
I apologized to my 7-year-old daughter about 2 weeks ago in front of my older aunties. And one of my aunties actually leaned up in her chair and was like, "What you just say?" Like, what are you doing? That is a child. What are you apologizing for? I apologize because I was wrong. She was attempting to tell me something. Um, my child likes electronics. She's really big on technology. She got to have an iPhone, iPad, laptop, all of that. And she didn't know where her iPad was. And I was upset because this is $1,000 piece of equipment that you don't know where it's at. And so she was trying to explain to me what happened with the iPad, but I wasn't trying to hear it. It was just go find the iPad. If you don't find the iPad, then I'm taking it away for 2 weeks. She kept trying to explain, and I just wasn't in a space where I was receptive to her explanation. And she found it, and she came and tossed it at me and was like, "There's the iPad. I was trying to tell you I was going to get it." And she walked off. Now my aunts are watching her. It's like, you just gonna let her talk to you like that? I pulled her to the side and I was like, you know what? Mommy didn't listen to you when you were trying to explain to me what you were doing with the iPad. I apologize for that. But you can't have strong responses to mommy like that. She's like, well, you had a strong response to me losing the iPad. You are absolutely right. So let's both work on not having strong responses to stuff and listening to each other. Deal. She gave me a high five. We made a deal. She went on about her business. My aunt, you could have knocked her over with a feather because she was like, what was that? What kind of white people parenting was that? No, it's not about being black or white. It's about me wanting to have a child that's able to express herself without consequence. I don't want my child to think that it's not okay for her to stand up for herself. She was trying to explain to me that she didn't lose her iPad, that her little brother took it. I didn't hear that part. So I was blaming her for something she didn't do. And I wanted to make sure that she understood that it's not okay for people to blame you for something you didn't do, not even me. And so that's the kind of communication I like to establish with my kids. Now, my older African family members, they ain't going for it. They ain't going for it. They don't understand it. They think I'm raising little Carlton and Ashley Banks. They are like, no, this is not how we parent. But I think that the way that they parented accounted for a lot of how I turned out in my younger years. So I don't want to do it that way. Y'all showed me how not to do it. So let me try it this way. You're muted, King. I can't hear you.
Mic check, mic check.
Yeah, I
Good
can hear
now. All right. Yeah, I had to atone because corporal punishment was the the correct all.
you.
When I grew up, my uncles came over, my aunts came, whoever came over after my mother got off the phone after you know she handled her business. They came over. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, is it one time or is it every time I think about it or whatever the case may be with my mother? But if she got on the phone, let me tell you what your nephew. Oh, shit. Here we go. Here come the army. Dum, 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 dum,
Mm-hmm.
dum, 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 dum.
But
And
that's
the
the
double
we
mindedness
don't
of it
have
was
anymore.
crazy. It was so crazy because for everybody else, when they seen them same uncles and aunts, it was a party.
Mm,
It was a party. It wasn't no outright. If you didn't know, you didn't know. They're like, oh, uncles. So they went to the store. They got stuff from the store. It was a party and blah blah blah. While the party was going on, you in the back room getting tore up out the frame. You understand what I'm saying? So it wasn't like it was no. They're like, oh, and then after that, they rolled out. You see what I'm saying? So
mm,
so much of this modeling of the plantation is something that we got adjusted to. So this plantation living, plantation life, plantation corporal punishment is something that's there. So that space is like, what?
mm-hmm.
That that's a child. Like those things wasn't explained. Those things nobody said, hey, we grew up like this and these were the consequences. It could cost you your life, it could cost you your limb, it could cost you your eyesight, it could cost you something grueling would have happened to us. And this is all I know. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it would have been a little different. So when I spoke to my children, I was like, this is all I knew. This is all I knew when
Right.
it came to, solving whatever the problems were. It wasn't, you weren't the problem. What you did was the problem. Blah, blah. I had to go through all of that in the tone. I had to beg for their forgiveness because I didn't want another generation of that. I
Right.
didn't want another generation of that. I could not, acknowledge and co-sign. I would kill a man or a woman or a child that put their hands on my daughter, but I put my hands on my daughter. Are you crazy? You see
Right.
what I'm saying? Like, no, like, why would I tell her that this is okay and I'm doing this because I love you? I'm abusing you because I love you. Like, what signals am I sending? How am I setting her up for failure for the rest of her life?
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like, nah, I'm not having it. So it was, sharing these things, and being brutally honest, and then taking whatever came along with it without the, I'm the adult, you the child, I'm the parent, type situation. I just had to, whatever came from that, I had to deal with that, so
Right.
I think I done
Black
froze
people
up.
love by corporal punishment now. We'll whoop somebody.
Right. In a
And it's
heartbeat.
not effective. It's not effective. The times when I was spanked, you could spank me, and because I was a very rebellious child, if you spank me at 12:30, by 12:45, I'm somewhere getting in trouble again because that whooping don't hurt no more. And
Oh,
it pisses me off. Now, if you took something from me, I handled that way different. If you put me on punishment or you grounded me, that was handled way different. There we go. We back in business. Okay, I can hear you now. Yeah, I was saying that, if you whooped me, you spanked me.
no, I
Then,
heard you. My screen had just
oh,
froze up. That's
but yeah,
that's
taking something from me worked better than that. Taking something from me killed me. If you tell me you're taking my television, you're taking my video games, you're taking the telephone, that was punishment to me. And that would make me stop and think about if I wanted to do that thing again because I don't want my phone taken away. You have to figure out what works for your child. And a lot of times, Black children in 2024, hitting them is not what works. You don't want to beat your child into submission. You don't want them to behave because they're scared of you. Figure out what's that thing that they like that really, really just does it for them, or whether it's a sport, a TV show, a certain toy that they like. Figure out what that is and let them understand that if you do this bad thing, you lose this privilege. They don't want to lose the privilege, so they don't do the bad thing. Because if I had to correct a mother the other day, she has a toddler that he hit her and he swung at her, he hit her pretty hard. And her first instinct was just to start whooping him. And I said, now what do you think you just taught him? She's like, I taught him not to hit me. No, what you did was you taught him that when you don't like something, it's okay to hit people. When you don't like a behavior, that you hit. So that's why he hit you. You told him no, he couldn't have no juice. He didn't like it, so he hit you. And that's what you taught him. So now you got to teach him something different. And she said she had never looked at it that way, that her mama just treated her like that, so she treats her kids like that. But treat your kids to be better. Raise them to be better than what our parents raised us.
yes, 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 yes. If we don't, I was in the military. They said if you don't enforce a standard, you just created a new one.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that is, that's going to be what it is. Um, Something you said earlier when you said you confided in the lady that you met at church, and her response was, "What are you doing to make him so mad?"
Mm-hmm.
The conditioning for abuse and the justification for abuse is abusive.
Mm-hmm.
So you looked at yourself as inadequate. You looked at yourself in all of these spaces that was negative, and you were the victim being victimized
Right.
by someone who may have grew up in an abusive environment where this was their recourse, or whatever the case may be. I don't know the root cause analysis, but that response was to show you that Black women go through hell, and they go through hell with a smile. They go through hell with a scowl, with a stern face, with things that sound like judgment. They suffer in silence. They don't get to have the luxury of speaking about what they endure. And
Right.
if they do, it comes off as brash, it comes off as bitter, it comes off as angry, instead of the trauma that it is, you
Mhm.
know, instead of the trauma that it is. So that through line of open communication has to be something that is stressed, because otherwise the receiver of all of those brunt things, those brass things that snap, that quick to cut off, which are all defense mechanisms to protect the psyche, to protect the self, right?
Right.
If they aren't explained, the receiver doesn't know how to take that.
Mhm.
Especially a child who's coming to you because they trust you. Like, why are they coming to you? They trust you. You know.
Right.
So all of
And
those
I
things.
couldn't even be as an adult now. I still see this woman and I'm still cordial with her. I don't hold it against her because she was only doing what she knew how to do. She was only
Hmm.
giving me what she was equipped to give me. And from the plantation, we have been conditioned that if something bad happens, we just grin and bear it.
Hmm.
That's not something that you run and get help for. It's not something that you run and tell anybody. You just kind of suck it up and keep going because we didn't have those options on the plantation. And so now we still have people that have that plantation mindset of if something bad happens to you, if something or someone hurts you, you internalize that. Don't go tell nobody outside of this house what goes on in this house. Don't go to nobody expecting help. You figure it out yourself. And because of that, you have these all too common situations where we may have an uncle in the family who's a child molester, and you got three generations of women who done came and said, "Hey, Uncle so and so touched me, Uncle so and so hurt me," and you're still making these women sit at the table on Thanksgiving across from this same uncle that molested them. Because let's keep everything in house. Let's not talk about it. We know he's a little off. We know your uncle's a little off, so just don't sit on his lap. That's his consequence. Don't sit on Uncle Chester's lap. Not we gonna put him in jail. Not we gonna find out, if there's something mental going on with Uncle Chester that makes him keep doing this. Let's just not talk about it, and let's just kind of stay away from him, steer clear of him, or don't be in a room with him by yourself. No, Uncle Chester need to be in the DOC because that's not okay. But a lot of our young black girls and even our young black boys now are taught that it's okay because we don't show them that there's consequences for the abuse. We don't show them that it's okay to go to somebody and get help or talk about it. We teach them to internalize things and then wonder why they get 30 years old and they don't have the emotional intelligence to be able to express themselves properly because you taught them to internalize. You taught them to bottle it up, and now it's overflowing and you're responding to their response instead of acknowledging that the buildup that led to it. It's the equivalent of shaking up a can of soda, and then when you open it and it goes everywhere, be like, well, why did it do that? Because you shook it up. You caused that to happen.
So what are some cognitive behavioral techniques, or what are some things that we can implement uh, in our lives, with our youth? Some things we could do as a family to seek to remedy, some of these things.
One of the main things we need to bring back, if our schedule permits it, is going back to eating dinner together. Everybody need to sit at the table because that's a time for wrapping up your day. That's a time for talking about things good or bad that happened throughout your day. That's a time for the entire family to unwind and to tone their energy down. But what happens now is you pick the kids up McDonald's and you got one in their room, one in their living room watching TV, you in your room eating. We don't have that communal space. And so I would encourage all black parents, get back to having some kind of dinner time, even if you can only do it once a week. That's what we started Sunday dinners for in the black community. Because on Sundays, some of us were able to lead a plantation. Some of us were able to go and see our family members that may be on the next plantation over. So we started Sunday dinners as this is when we come together, this is when we catch up, this is when we do our talking and our unwinding with each other. And we lost that tradition. A lot of families don't do that no more. Some because they're busy, some because they just simply don't want to. The family dynamic is so different. But we need to get back to having these spaces where we do come together at least once a week to talk to each other, to find out what's going on in each other's lives. My son is getting ready to be 2 in April. I have family members that live 10 minutes away from me that have never seen my son. And not because there's a beef or anything like that. Just life be lifing. We don't get together like that anymore. We don't have that Sunday dinner where you see everybody's kids at grandma's house. And so I was discussing that with my mom. I was like, we got to fix that. Because I knew all of my cousins when I was little, and it was a whole lot of us. My children don't have that same luxury. They're meeting cousins that are first cousins that they're seeing for the first time. And so we got to get back to having those communal spaces, having those family spaces where we do come together, and we got to allow the kids to speak. Quit sitting them at the kids' table like they don't have anything to contribute to the family because they're the ones that's going to carry the family on. So let's sit them beside us and show them how they're supposed to act for, in these communal spaces instead of putting them in the table in the corner and letting them leave them to their own devices. So I think that's going to make a big difference if we get back to having those communal spaces and those family, or even if it's not blood family, those group activities.
Now, what about emotional regulation techniques? Like, what are things that we could do, as a family?
So I have this thing, and this is another thing that my family says that it's white people parenting. But with my 7-year-old, I use what I call the stoplight method. If she is misbehaving or she's acting out, if I'm a little aggravated, she'll know, okay, my thoughts are yellow. You're pushing it. You need to get it together. If I'm happy, she's doing a great job. Hey, you're giving mommy green thoughts today. You're doing a good job. She acts up a little bit, they're yellow thoughts. She knows when she steps out of line and she's about to get in trouble. What color are mommy's thoughts? You look like they're red, mommy. Okay, well, what are we going to do to get mommy back to green? You put it in her hands. Let her figure out what she needs to do to correct her own actions to get me back to that green light. And it works every time. And what you do is you teach them in the process how to regulate their emotions, how to fix conflict, how to fix something when they mess up or they make a mistake or they misbehave. Instead of telling them what to do and beating it into their head, you're teaching them decision making. You're teaching them to correct themselves. So even if I'm not around and she's with my mom or she's with her dad, if she's acting up, she'll say, "Hey, daddy, what color are your thoughts right now?" And he's like, "Here, you and your mama go with this hippie therapy stuff." But he's catching on and he's starting to work with it now because it works. And so when they're a little older, you may not want a red light, yellow light, green light with them, but still the same concept of, you see that you're making me upset. What can we do to fix this? What can we do to get your behavior back to where it needs to be? What can we do so that we're not beefing or having this tension right now? And so the communication is going to come from you leading by example. You being able to communicate with them when you're upset about their behavior teaches them how to communicate when they're upset. But if you just yell and fly off the handle and start punishing them, you didn't teach them communication skills. All you taught them was consequence. And so that is one of the main things when it comes to regulating emotions that we need to start back doing with our youth is talking to them, showing them how to communicate so that they don't have these emotions flying off the chart that they don't know how to express or release.
We owe her some money for this therapy session, okay? Mm. She's a
It's
trap
global.
therapist, man. You know what I
It's
mean?
global
She,
this
yeah,
time.
okay. Because this has been a deep dive, dropping the bucket into our psyche, and analyzing and looking at behaviors and correcting behaviors. These are the things where we reinstitute new norms, new folkways, new mores, new norms. We had folkways, mores, and norms prior to this invasion and interruption. So we come from critically thinking people, and not we had an interruption with barbarians, and barbarians, you know, come into situations like that. So
Right.
if we want these things to be restorative, we have to reconcile for some of these things.
Hmm.
I
I
thank
had
you.
a Rastafarian elder one time tell me something that always sticks out to me. And he said, make sure that you are a parent and not an overseer.
Mm,
Make sure that you are pouring into your child and you're teaching your child and not just enforcing what somebody else taught you. A lot of people think on the plantation that it was always just white folks, whooping the slaves or looking after the slaves. The best overseers, the most effective overseers were the ones that look just like you.
mhm.
And so when he told me that, I was like, you know what? I don't want to be an overseer. I don't want to enforce somebody else's ideology, somebody else's methods on my child. I'd rather be a parent and teach them my own. And so that's where we're at with it. That would be my closing statement to the parents is make sure you're a parent and not an overseer.
Right. Or corrections officer.
Right.
Right. Y'all see this link tree, okay? Get booked, you know, get it together. Get it together. You know. I could beg her to come here once a month. You see what I'm saying? But that's not enough of a
You
therapy
was
session. You got
begging. This man ain't begged me to do nothing. Y'all don't fall for that.
boys to men. I was down on bended knee, y'all. You understand what I'm saying? Down
Oh
on bended knee.
man, the theatrics with this guy. But no, I love coming on here. It's always a good time. Always, you know, I feel like I love what you do. You're putting the information out there in ways that most people don't. You could easily have a podcast and do what some of these other fellas do and be Kevin Samuels Jr. and bash black women and families, and
Woo.
you choose to uplift instead. So anytime you hit me up, I'm coming. Anytime.
Some people need to just be set on fire. You understand?
Right.
Some people. But I thank you. I thank you for who you are and what you do, and I'm thankful for your experiences because your experiences led you to a place to be someone else's testimony of wellness, someone else's testimony of healing. You know, the healing journey don't always look pretty. You understand what I'm saying? They don't always look pretty, and we in a constant state of healing and learning. You know, not just coping mechanisms, but eradication. Eradication. I heard one time they said the best apology is change behavior. You know,
Exactly.
so those techniques and things that you provide. This it's so much more, y'all. It's just a little drop. You understand what I'm saying? This is why we got the link tree up here. You need to see, need to take advantage of some services. She got some deals going on right now. You understand what I'm saying? So, if you can use these last few minutes to get a commercial, get people hip, so they can book and go in the trap, get the trap sessions. Okay.
Absolutely. But I appreciate that. And anytime that you need me, I do virtual sessions. I do in-home sessions if you're local. I work with anybody from ages 6 to 106. So if you need me, I'm here.
I know you got one more word, a final word in that vast brain of yours, for the family that's listening and that will listen to this video. Let them know.
I think something that I want to stress, especially since we're talking about the youth, but what I want to stress to just black people in general, it is okay for you not to be okay sometimes. We got to get out of this mindset of keeping going and pushing through the pain and pushing through the trauma. If you need to cry, if you need to cuss, if you need to scream, give yourself a little bit of time to do that. It's okay to feel what you feel. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay as a mom, if you need to go hide in the bathroom for 5 minutes because them kids tearing your nerves up, sis, go get in the bathroom. If you need to sit in the car in the driveway for an extra few minutes before you come into the house and deal with all of that, do what you got to do. It is perfectly fine for you not to be okay all the time. You're not built to be okay all the time. But it's important not to sit in it. It's important not to stay there. But let yourself have some time to feel what you feel and then bounce back and do what you got to do.
And the people can find you where?
Houseofblanco.com, Blanco Bruja on Instagram. Pretty much everything is Blanco Bruja. You can find me, but houseofblanco.com will be your easiest way to book or to get in touch with me for any reason, spiritual reasons, therapy reasons. If you just want to talk, hit me up on houseofblanco.com.
All right. Thank you, Doc, for your time, for your energy, for your jewels. Okay. She's so damn amazing. Okay. Thank you for being amazing. Thank you for being phenomenal.
It's always a good time. You just let me know when you need to get me back on here. Don't be telling these folks you begging me.
Get my Johnny Gill on, okay? Who was the baby face? Who was doing the begging all the time? Keith Sweat. I don't know. Whoever it need to be. You understand what I'm saying? Whoever it need to be.
No, I'll come back anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Peace and blessings to you, Mother God. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk again soon.
Yes, ma'am. We out of here. Peace and love, y'all.
They wanna tell us that they made us, stripped away our culture and enslaved us. We survived through the worst time, and they did their best to break us. We played a game, but the game rigged. Now we woke and got our own shit. Everything was all good when we was worthless. Now they mad cause I got a God complex. I got a God complex. Now they mad cause I got a God complex. It was all good when we was worthless. Now they mad cause I got a God complex. A born deity, swag of a king, extension of the Most High, getting this bag for the team. Hover above all, they want me to have humility. Them same folks out here trying to suppress my ability. Spit divine words that manifest in the physical. So when I say I am money, homie, it be spiritual. Get it in this lifetime and shine in the next one. Never let nobody make you feel guilty about your blessing. Yes, I got a God complex. Now they mad cause I got a God complex. It was all good when we was worthless. Now they mad cause I got a God complex. I got a God complex. Now they mad cause I got a God complex. It was all good when we was worthless. Now they mad cause I got a God complex.
See, I am the eternal son walking the earth. Not a man, but I am that God that gave him birth. See, my womb is the gateway. I bleed every month for Ashe. I'll be damned if you tell me what I am worth. Supreme being is mother, oracle and seers. Time to go to the ego and ask the spirit to lead us. Medicine woman, our world is really sick and need healing. So now we welcome the divine in our spirit. Ashe.
I got a God complex. Now they mad cause I got a God complex. It was all good when we was worthless. Now they mad cause I got a God complex.
Melanated, they make it so complicated, and now we separated cause they tell us we're minorities. But we the Haitians, Jamaicans, even some Latins and Asians, some Cubans and Mexicans, we are majority.
Yeah, they call us witches cause magic is what we conjuring. Took and turned our words into spells and now we under it. Some won't acknowledge our power till the apocalypse, unleash it on the world. and send them packing on rocket ships.
Yeah, heart of a lion, land of the dead and dying. My bag is about that garden, my swag about ancient knowledge and tapping into them. Message from a pendulum, ancestors saying that it's time for the world to see it.
See, they wanna be it. We got the sands of time. Our DNA filled with to medicate the mind. We demonstrate divine powers that can open portals. They fear us cause ye are gods amongst mere mortals. They wanna tell us that they made us, stripped away our culture and enslaved us. We survived through the worst time, and they did their best to break us. We played a game, but the game rigged. Now we woke and got a whole shit. Everything was all good when we was worthless. Now they mad cause I got a God complex. I got a God complex. Now they mad cause I got a God complex. It was all good when we was worthless. Now they mad cause I got a God complex. I got a God complex. Now they mad cause I got a God complex. It was all good when we was worthless. Now they mad cause I got a God complex.
Yo, life's a solar roller coaster. Time will make you hold me closer. Hold the torch, show support. My hands will stroke your shoulders to dismantle all your boulders. Heavy is the crown she wore, the stars within her dress, the nest with heaven in her gown. Well, I'm the poet that guided souls, but legacies around. My centerpiece extend, my reach is destiny abounds. Don't be fooled by those who move in squares. Beauty's in the air. Spiritual is spherical, a miracle so rare. I got lyrics in my head. My locks contain the prophet's names. This is where my compass aim. Vision of my conscious claims. Paradise within, on the path that I begin. From the navel, stomach, cable, love is able. Summon angels, cut the labels that's been placed on you. Cattle brands and fashion lamps. Secretly they claiming you. Stay your light, feel alright. Wield the mic and feel the might. The power that will change it all. Rest assured the checkerboard beneath you in the Mason's hall. Knowledge is a real delight. All that I reveal is bright. This is what life is really like. With vapor falls, the mind control with haters, thoughts and time unfolds. Warriors in they software. Thoughts of when we all cared. Listen, these are timeless goals. Wisdom of this Mayan scroll, twisted like a Morse head. Living as a more, yeah. Love or death above the flesh. Visions of me something fresh. Counseling the lost and found. Characters are lost surrounds. Doctrine of discovery. Still couldn't put their crosses down. Call us black with coffee brown. Cinnamon and nutmeg. Copper and mahogany. Salt and pepper thinkers. Now we peanut butter olivey. Seek us in the almond tree. See the planet consciously. Drop us in the colony. Akashic soul robbery. Please advance your pottery. Living sculpture, spirit culture. Hear the vulture circling. Let them wait, won't hesitate to leave you as I meditate. Astral travel past the battle. Evil didn't resonate. Cause man is an eternal blend of infinite and temporal. Intimate and special hue. Kissed by the electric glue that bonds me and connected you so highly. They respect my view. I'm trying to confess to you. A lion in the flesh with you. A lion in the flesh is true. Son of man, Leo. Understand, Neo. What a grand ego. Geographic beat the traffic. Ether magic reach the attic. Climbing deacon strands. Y'all will smite the wicked, yet he guides me with the same hands. Pituitary pin to you. Got us in the same glands. Run DMT. Walk this way, I take you to where fate lands. Semen of a brave man. See it with your Ray-Bans. Secret of a space jam. Life's a motion picture. The ecliptic is the frame stand. Earth is like a flat screen. Pixel people cells themselves printed on a map screen. The tales of where we dream is now imprisoned in a vast dream. It's resurrection time. The gods are here again. I read the heaven signs. We gotta heal twin. Don't you feel the change? Don't you hear the wind? Just blow your breath in mine and let the spirit in. Resurrection time.
Hey, Sunshine Monet with the affirmations to enjoy your day with Sunshine Monet. You are listening to Chakra Music.
I came through with intentions of destruction. You said you wanted freedom, well it's me then that you wanted. I moved in gratitude as my soul was being summoned. The consciousness has returned, Christ is really coming. I make these flows for the souls that drift in indigo. I make some goals for they glow since they was embryos. Access the records, they lectures, keep your principles. Enemies infect you, don't let them reach your pinnacles. Reversing curses that's embedded in religions. They wound up in your soul, that's why you feel tension. I'm remixing declensions before Sumerians existed. It's something in the water, don't get caught, you'll get acidic. I bury enemies, pay pinnacles to the witness. You say my name in threes, I appear in your vision. Write Iliads in me, I'm the witcher in your system. Silly as can be, there's no opposite in infinite. I'm the goddess of crossroads, touching all directions. With the skull and crossbones that call to the vexes. I applaud the protectors, I'm the god of inflection. They see the demon in me and still pause the respecters. I need no translation, vibrating from universe. My throat mansplaining while my yoni do the work. Mask off, crowns on, bombshell on all the arts. Mask off, crowns on, bombshell on all the arcs. Mask off, crowns on, bombshell on all the arcs. Mask off, crowns on, bombshell on all the arcs.
Enoch 7 prophet, move like the full winds do. My energy is useful, my thoughts are old school. So I move with a Bob Slim. Say I'm sexy, haircut like Anita Baker, real lovely. Caught up in the rapture, it's kinda risque. Kisses and faces on public is real frisky. Touche.
You are listening to Chakra Music.
Mask off.